As some of you might know, Israel and Palestine haven't really been getting along lately. So yeah, not the best of friends. But now it's time to get on with the reason you clicked on this. The control over Jerusalem is something people have been killing each other over hundreds of years, and it doesn't seem like anything is changing. Of course, there's always going to be a little nuance to a situation of this scale, but what I'm afraid of, and I hope I'm wrong about this, is a second Holocaust, where Israel is invaded by Palestine and or any other neighboring states, and a ethnic cleansing might take place, and those who subscribe to the barbaric ideology of identity politics, many Palestinians will also suffer. But I personally despise identity politics because it takes away the individual and replaces them with their group, which is racist, sexist, and all the other buzzwords people like to use nowadays. But back to the situation at hand. Palestine has been chipping away at Israel's land over the decades, getting closer and closer to the quote-unquote Holy Land. But Israel seems to not be going down without a fight. And as a disclaimer, I know the situation is long and complex, and in history it is almost never black and white. But with that being said, let's get on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So, in present instance, Hamas started this by firing hundreds of rockets into Israel's Iron Dome, and it was overwhelmed, causing the death of many Israelis and Palestinians who are living there. But to draw a line in the sand, the Jews see it as they need a homeland, and Jerusalem is also a holy land. So it only makes sense that they would want it so bad, and they do need a place to live when they're being persecuted everywhere else. But in the defense of the Palestinians, they also have a right and reason to be there, but it does not justify the treatment of Israel. What is troubling is how the media portrays Hamas as these victims, when in fact they are a terrorist organization who builds buildings for an innocent, then hide in those structures, forcing any retaliation to cause civilian casualties, which is unethical. Not to mention, Israel, in a land sense, is very, very small, while Palestine is very abundant in land in comparison. Not to mention, this small country has been giving land successions for decades. No matter how much they give, Palestine is never satisfied, creating resentment between the two nations. So this started off with Hamas lying about Israel stopping prayer at a temple. Then, in retaliation, they fired 400 rockets at sovereign Israel, though you could easily classify this as an unprovoked act of aggression. One of the ways they, as in the media, is being unfair, is calling this a cycle of violence, where in the way they are portraying it, as both of them are just as guilty. When in reality, Israel is trying hard to keep civilian casualties to a minimum, whereas Hamas is using hospitals as their base of operations, which is a scummy thing to do. But because of this, the media fails to look at the big picture, or is just lying about it, and calls out the people who are in the right, or at least trying to do what's right given the circumstance that they're in. So, to beat a dead horse, the Israelis, to put it bluntly, are getting screwed over in terms of treatment and public perception. Not to mention, Israel has complete air superiority over the region and could easily bomb their enemies into submission, but still sends ground soldiers to prevent civilian casualties. And I wouldn't be surprised if the media is trying to push an anti-Semitic agenda by showing blown up enemy bases as terrorist attacks, when in reality they just use apartment buildings as their base of operations, and so they basically force the Israeli government to create terrorist attacks just to defend themselves. But to put it blankly, Palestine is attacking Israel unprovoked. When Israel defends itself, the media calls itself an act of terrorism. So with that being said, I hope this situation will work itself out, but probably not. See ya.
Is full? Tell? What the fuck is this?